जय गोपीजनवल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपीजनवल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन। जमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपीजनवल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन जमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय राधा राधनत राधा राधनत राधे जय राधा श्याम सुंदर राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राधे Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna, thank you and welcome to today's Sunday morning program. Before we begin, I'd like to humbly beg all the devotees to please bless me that I can say something that is pleasing to the heart. Hare Krishna. So before we begin, we are reading from Krishna book today, chapter 21. And I'll chant some invocation prayers before we begin reading. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmenitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are reading from Krishna book, chapter 21, entitled The Gopis Attracted by the Flute. Now, this is a very sweet chapter, and it is teaching us a very, very important lesson to always remember Krishna. So, before we begin, I want to ask you a question. You don't have to answer it now. We will discuss it at the end of the lesson or at the end of the class. What is Krishna consciousness? Just remember that at the back of your mind. So, here in this chapter, we have Krishna entering the forest, and the gopis are remembering Krishna, and they're associating everything that they see with Krishna. So, in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada writes that persons who are constantly engaged in the transcendental meditation of seeing Krishna internally and externally, by thinking of him, playing the flute, entering the Vrindavan forest, and tending the cows with the cowherd boys, have really attained perfection of samadhi. And samadhi means absorption of all activities of the senses in a particular object. And the gopis indicate that the pastimes of Krishna are the perfection of all meditation. And samadhi, and perfection of all meditation and samadhi. And it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who is always absorbed in the thoughts of Krishna is the topmost of all yogis. So, now we won't go through the entire chapter, but we will go through what the gopis are looking at, and what they see that is reminding them of Krishna. So, with the arrival of autumn, of the beautiful autumn season, the waters in the lakes and rivers became as clear as crystal and filled with fragrant lotus flowers, and breezes blew very presently. At that time, Krishna entered the forest of Vrindavan with the cows and cowherd boys. Krishna was very much pleased with the atmosphere of the forest, where flowers bloomed and bees buzzed and drones hummed very jubilantly. While the birds, trees, and plants were all looking very happy, Krishna, tending the cows and accompanied by Sri Balaram and the other cowherd boys, began to vibrate his transcendental flute. After hearing the vibration of the flute of Krishna, the gopis in Vrindavan remembered him and began to talk amongst themselves about how nicely Krishna was playing his flute. When the gopis were describing the sweet vibration of Krishna's flute, they also remembered their pastimes with him. Thus, their minds became disturbed, and they were unable to describe the completely beautiful vibration. While discussing the transcendental vibration, they remembered how Krishna dressed, decorated with a peacock feather on his head, just like a dancing actor, and with blue flowers pushed over his ear. His garment glowed yellow gold, and he was garlanded with a Vaijayanti necklace. Dressed in such an attractive way, Krishna filled up the holes of his flute with the nectar emanating from his lips. So they remembered him entering the forest of Vrindavan, which is always glorified by the footprints of Krishna and his companions. So one of the gopis told her friends, the highest perfection of the eyes is to see Krishna and Balaram entering the forest and playing their flutes and tending the cows and their friends. Another gopi expressed her opinion that Krishna and Balaram, while tending the cows with the cowherd boys, appeared just like actors going to play on a dramatic stage. Krishna was dressed in glowing garments of yellow, Balaram in blue, and they held new twigs of mango tree, peacock feathers, and bunches of flowers in their hands. Dressed with garlands of lotus flowers, they were sometimes singing very sweetly among their friends. One gopi told her friends, "How is it that Krishna and Balaram are looking so beautiful?" Another gopi said, "My dear friends, we cannot even think of his bamboo flute. What sort of pious activities did it execute so that it is now enjoying the nectar of the lips of Krishna, who is actually the property of the gopis?" So, another gopi asked, "How is it possible that the flute, which is nothing but a bamboo rod, is always engaged in enjoying the nectar of Krishna's lips? Because the flute is engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, the mother and the father of the flute must be very happy." Another gopi spoke thus to her friends about Krishna, "Dear friend, our Vrindavan is proclaiming the glories of this entire earth because this planet is glorified by the lotus footprints of the son of Devaki. Besides that, when Govinda plays his flute, the peacocks immediately become mad, as if they had heard the rumbling of a new cloud. When all the animals and trees and plants, either on the top of Govardhan Hill or in the valley, see the dancing of the peacocks, they all stand still and listen to the transcendental sound of the flute with great attention. We think that this boon is not possible or available on any other planet." Another gopi said, "My dear friends, just see the deer. Although they are dumb animals, they have approached the son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna. Not only are they attracted by the dress of Krishna and Balaram, but as soon as they hear the playing of the flute, the deer, along with their husbands, offer respectful obeisances unto the Lord by looking at him with affection. The gopis were envious of the deer because the deer were able to offer their service to Krishna along with their husbands. The gopis thought themselves not to be so fortunate because whenever they wanted to go to Krishna, their husbands were not very happy. Another gopi said, "My dear friends, Krishna is so nicely dressed that he appears to be the impetus to various kinds of ceremonies held by the women folk. Even the wives of the denizens of heaven become attracted after hearing the transcendental sound of his flute. Although they were traveling in the air, in the aeroplanes, enjoying the company of their husbands, on hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, they immediately become perturbed. Their hair is loosened and their tight belts are slackened. This means that the transcendental sound of the flute of Krishna extended to all corners of the universe. Also, it is significant that the gopis knew the different kinds of aeroplanes flying in the sky. Another gopi said to her friends, "My dear friends, the cows are so charmed as soon as they hear the transcendental sound of the flute. It sounds to them like the pouring of nectar, and they immediately spread their long ears just to catch the liquid nectar of the flute. As for the calves, they are seen with their nipples of their mothers pressed in their mouths, but they cannot suck the milk. They remain stuck with devotion, and tears glide down from their eyes, illustrating vividly how they are embracing Krishna heart to heart." Another young gopi told her mother, "My dear mother, the birds who are all looking at Krishna playing on his flute are sitting very attentively on the branches and twigs of different trees. From their features, it appears that they have forgotten everything and are engaged only in hearing Krishna's flute. This proves that they are not ordinary birds. They are great sages and devotees. Just to hear Krishna's flute, they have appeared in the Vrindavan forest as birds." Another gopi began to praise the unique position of Govardhan Hill in this way. "How fortunate is Govardhan Hill, for it is enjoying the association of Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are accustomed to walking on it. Thus Govardhan Hill is always in touch with the lotus feet of the Lord. And because Govardhan Hill is so obliged to Lord Krishna and Balaram, it is supplying different kinds of fruit, roots, and herbs, as well as pleasing crystal water from its lakes in the presentation to the Lord. The breast presentation offered by Govardhan Hill, however, is newly grown grass for the cows and calves. Govardhan Hill knows how to please the Lord by pleasing his most beloved associates, the cows and the cowherd boys." Another gopi said, "Everything appears wonderful when Krishna and Balaram travel in the forest of Vrindavan, playing their flutes and making intimate friendship with all kinds of moving and non-moving creatures. When Krishna and Balaram play on their transcendental flutes, the moving creatures become stunned and stop their activities, and the non-moving living creatures, like the trees and plants, begin to shiver with ecstasy. These are the wonderful reactions to the vibration of the transcendental flute of Krishna and Balaram." So, Hare Krishna, these are the reminiscence of the gopis in Vrindavan, that everything they look at, they think of Krishna. And my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Parthasarathi Das Maharaj, he says that it's Udipan. Udipan is a term we use in Sanskrit where you see something and it helps you, reminds you of something else. Like, let's say a mother is very, very attached to her son or a child, and she sees an item of clothing or she sees his shoes, and immediately, if the son is not anywhere close by, when she sees this item of clothing, she automatically remembers the child. So in this way, now the gopis, they were seeing everything in Vrindavan and they were constantly remembering Krishna. So fast forward to 2023, December. Here we have the festive season. We've begun this festive season, or it's better referred to as the silly season. And during this time, advertisers, they spend millions trying to catch all the attention of the shoppers. And the shoppers are in a frenzy to get whatever they think they desire. And the most the most popular ways that they use to motivate customers is cell phones, television, all forms of media that they can use to attract their potential customers. And if a person is tuned into these devices, then they are affected. Like, let's say, example, there's this advert that there's a huge sale happening at the local Chatsut center. Now, it'll be advertised on media, it'll be advertised on radio, it'll be advertised on your cell phone, on all forms of social media. And those that are tuned to that advertising, they will become affected. But somebody that is not in tune, it doesn't affect them. So what are they affecting? They are affecting our pleasure-seeking potency. And only if we are in tune with them do we become affected. So material nature works in a similar manner. She creates these allurements so that we can become trapped within this material world. Just like the advertisers that are advertising all their wares so that shoppers can become affected, in the same way, material nature is creating these allurements so that we become attracted to this material nature and we become bound to remain in this material world. Now, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Mameva Angsha Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatano. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. And Krishna is Rasabihari, the ocean of pleasure. And since we are his parts and parcels, we are also seeking pleasure. So the scriptures describe that due to the living entity being envious of Krishna and wanting to lord it over material nature, we have been placed in this material world. And here we come under the control of material nature, or the Maya Shakti, the external energy of the Lord. And material nature has been so designed to keep us bound in this material world, to keep us forgetful of our relationship with Krishna. Here, we're not going to find this pleasure, this eternal pleasure that we are seeking. We are longing for everything eternal, but in this world, everything is temporary. Here we are subject to birth, death, old age, and disease, and also the threefold miseries. This is the nature of this material world, and Krishna describes it as Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, a place of misery. So, here we are stuck in this place of misery. And what determines whether we get out is what we are tuned into. And the medium or the device that that helps us tune is the mind. Just like a cell phone. A cell phone is a device that has plastic, it has certain components, and it cannot do you any harm. But within the cell phone is an antenna. And that antenna receives energy or receives the reception from whoever is advertising. And once we tune into that cell phone, then we become affected. So in the same way, material nature, she has a channel. Right? And if you tune into her channel, then you are acting according to her natures. Right? She has Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. So she has all these channels that are alluring us. My dear Prabhu, look at that party that's happening on Christmas Eve. Do you really want to be in the temple? You can go to the temple the next morning. You can even attend Mangal Aarti the next morning. But there's this fabulous party happening on Christmas Eve. Why don't you go there? And if we tune into that, then we are acting on Maya's energy. We are acting according to Maya's channels, and we are tuning into Maya's channels. And what happens? We become attracted more and more to this material world. So, I'll give you two examples of how the scriptures describe Maya's energy or attraction to Maya's energy. And one of them is Ajamil, the pastime of Ajamil. We're all familiar with the pastime of Ajamil. Ajamil was a Brahmin performing Vedic rituals and Vedic sacrifices. But one day, he saw this prostitute embracing a man in the forest. And what happened? He became tuned to this Maya's allurement. He became attracted to this energy of the external nature, and he fell down. Fortunately for Ajamil, he had his previous Vedic injunctions that he performed, and he chanted the Lord's holy name at the time of death, and he was rescued. But this example of Ajamil is there to teach us that we are susceptible to Maya's attraction at any time. We have to safeguard ourselves. And then we have the devotee Prahlad Maharaj. We all know the pastime of Prahlad Maharaj. He was a pure devotee, and he was oblivious to Maya's channel. His teachers, Sandhana Marka, they were teaching so many material attractions. But Prahlad, when he got the opportunity, he was teaching his school friends how to chant the Maha Mantra. He was teaching them all about the Supreme Lord, Lord Vishnu. So he was tuned into the right channel, the Maha Mantra. And if we tune into that channel, then we will not become agitated. So we have to train our minds to tune into Krishna's channel, and that is chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Krishna, he explains this in Bhagavad Gita, and it's so emphatic that he actually repeats it. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 9th chapter, there's 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, and the 9th chapter is entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. And the very last verse in the 9th chapter, chapter 9, text 34, is Manmana bhava mat bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam eveshyasi yuktevyam atmanam mat parayana. Engage your mind in always thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances unto me. Worship me. Become completely absorbed in me. And surely you will come to me. Now, this is the heart of Bhagavad Gita. It's the most confidential knowledge. That's the chapter that Krishna is, that's chapter 9 that's entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. And this is the very concluding verse. Think of me, become my devotee. It's like the epicenter of Bhagavad Gita. You know, when there's an earthquake, scientists immediately, they will look for the epicenter. And the epicenter is the origin of the earthquake, or where the most amount of vibrations are experienced. So this verse, Man mana bhava mat bhakto, is like the epicenter of Bhagavad Gita. Always think of me. Engage your mind in thinking of me and become my devotee. And this verse is so relevant, so important, that Krishna repeats it in the 18th chapter. In the 18th chapter, text 65, he repeats this verse because it's so important for us to remember that. And here we have the gopis. They are completely in tune to Krishna's channel. Everything that they do, everything that they say is completely associated with Krishna. So that's how they are described as the topmost devotees of Lord Krishna. So now we have to imbibe or learn from the activities of the gopis, that we look around. Everything should be reminding us of Krishna. Now in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is elaborate descriptions of the universal form. And those that are not associated with the personal form of Krishna, they can look around. The trees, the birds, the bees, everything is part of this universal form. The trees are the hairs on the universal form of the Lord. The rivers are the veins on the universal form of the Lord. So everything within this material nature is designed to remind us of Krishna. But very important is that our mind have to be trained to be in tune with that. Just like the gopis, when they looked at the rivers, they looked at the birds, they looked at Govardhan Hill, everything reminded them of Krishna. So in the same way, when we look at the trees, we can look at the ground, we can look at the beach, we can look at the rivers, everything, or whichever way that you are spending your time, you can associate Krishna with that. So we need to tune in to Krishna's channel, like the gopis, and how they absorbed their mind in thinking of Krishna at all times. So how are some of the ways that we can tune our minds to Krishna's channel? Devotees, how do you think some of the ways that we are? I mean, I gave you the example of looking at the trees and the birds, but closer to home, how are some of the ways that we can tune our mind to Krishna's channel? I'll give you one example. is to read Srila Prabhupada's books. Be always absorbed in reading Srila Prabhupada's books. How are other ways that we can engage our minds? Anybody? Hare Krishna? Yes, serve the devotees. Serve the devotees. And Hare Krishna? Chanting Hare Krishna. Yes, very important. Chanting Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Engage in devotional service. Yes. Taking darshan of the deities. Anybody else? Taking prasad, yes. One very, very important point. Listening to kirtan? Sorry, Mataji, I can't. Yes, associating everything with Krishna. Listening to class. Offering prayers. We got it, but we got it in little, I'll give it to you. Association of devotees. That is the key for us to remain in Krishna's tune, in tune to Krishna's channel. It's the association of devotees. That is most important, because a devotee, if we are drifting away and devotees are there, they can slowly allure us back to Krishna's channel. Now, His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj once described Radha Kund on Radha Astami night. Everybody wants to take a bath at Radha Kund. And you don't have to be close. You just have to stand on the stairs and all the devotees will push you into Radha Kund. So like that, when we remain in the association of devotees, their energy will help us to always remain in tune with Krishna's channel. So, I'll just conclude this chapter with the concluding remarks by Srila Prabhupada. While Krishna was engaged in tending the cows in the forest of Vrindavan or on Govardhan Hill, the gopis in the village were always absorbed in thinking of him and discussing his different pastimes. This is the perfect example of Krishna consciousness, to somehow or other remain always engrossed in thoughts of Krishna. The vivid example is always present in the behavior of the gopis. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya declared that no one can worship the Supreme Lord by any method which is better than the method of the gopis. The gopis were not born in high Brahmin or Kshatriya families. They were born in the families of Vaishyas, and not in big mercantile communities, but in the families of cowherd men. They were not very well educated, although they heard all sorts of knowledge from the Brahmanas, the authorities of Vedic knowledge. The gopis' only purpose was to remain always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. So, devotees, we have to imbibe that mood, to always be thinking of Krishna. And in that way, we won't be allured by any of Maya's channels. Now, in the beginning, I asked you a question. What is Krishna consciousness? So, Srila Prabhupada, in Canto 3, Chapter 32, Text 40, in the purport, he describes Krishna consciousness is not a sectarian religious faith. It is a teaching process for understanding the Supreme Lord and our relationship with Him. So, this is Krishna consciousness. And it's these various methods, thinking of Krishna, associating with the devotees, chanting, all the different methods that you had you had mentioned to help us remain tuned to Krishna's channel. And ultimately, we remember Krishna, Antanarayan Smriti. At the end of our life, we remember Krishna and we go back to the spiritual world to personally associate and serve Krishna. So I'm going to stop here. If there are any comments and questions, you are welcome to address it now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There's a microphone here, but since I have it. So thank you very much, Vaishnava Priya Mataji. It would have been good if somebody introduced you. Vaishnava Priya Mataji is the good wife of Sampati Prabhu, who both run the Gillet's Namahata. And she is also quite involved in the, we'd call it the customer relations section of Krishna consciousness, because at all the festivals, that's her service, to engage with new people. And they do the Diwali festival very religiously, pun intended. And amongst that, she's also a good mother in our community, extending herself in so many ways. Thank you very much for a very systematic presentation. And I like your analogy of the mobile phones. I think this class would also go very well with the youngsters. Although if I look around here, I can see various degrees of people. Not many youngsters, but a few. And a good reminder to us to be absorbed in Krishna in all of these ways, particularly in the 9 process of devotional service. So I don't have a question, but I just wanted to glorify you and thank you very much for your class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for such a nice class. I also really appreciated your analogies and your presentation. But I do also have a question. So we were reading something along the lines of how when Krishna plays his flute, then it reaches out and affects all 4 corners of the universe. It reaches out that far. So I'm thinking, surely that includes the material universe, which would mean, I'm just thinking about it, maybe you can elaborate more for me, I'm trying to understand. That would mean whenever Krishna plays his flute in Goloka Vrindavan, then that would have an effect on us without us even really knowing. Would that be right?
Yes, yes. And that's the whole idea of being in tune, because we are not in tune to Krishna's flute. Krishna plays his flute in Vrindavan and the vibrations actually come to the material world. But unfortunately, we are so conditioned that we cannot hear that vibration. So that's why we are not able to actually react to Krishna's flute as the denizens of the heavenly planets, or not even the denizens. It's the residents of the spiritual world. They are able to hear this flute and the sound vibration. We see, especially in the time of creation, Lord Brahma, when he appeared on the lotus flower and he meditated for 1,000 years, and when he actually received darshan of the Supreme Lord, Krishna gave him instructions through this flute. So he played his flute and the instructions appeared through the ears of Brahma and into the heart of Brahma. So like that, we are not in tune because of our conditioned nature. And unfortunately, we have to train our minds to become more in tune to Krishna's channel, like I said, Krishna's channel, and then we will be able to actually hear the transcendental vibrations of the flute. Hare Krishna. I'm not very qualified on the subject. Prabhu, if you would like to enlighten us a little more.
Starting from the material side, we're talking about the channel, but it's like you say, ads come up like on the phone, but you have to click it, right? So if you don't click either the material or spiritual side, you won't get it. Krishna says in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita that while contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment. So if someone stops the contemplation before it comes too far, they won't develop the attachment. And then when they develop the attachment, then lust arises,
Yes.
and then anger, and from anger, bewilderment, and then one falls into the material pool. And the other way, when one becomes conscious of Krishna, you take steps to him, he takes steps to you, and keeps you in line with him. It's like a relationship. And so whichever where you're putting your energy, that's what you're going to think about. Some people think about playing cricket and watching the cricket match all the time, but because I never put any energy to it, I can pass many months without even being aware that such a sport exists. So the same way, if we don't put the energy to Krishna, we won't think that he exists. And if we put the energy to there, like Krishna says, even though the taste remains, by experiencing a higher taste, we become fixed in consciousness. So someone may not believe in electricity, but if he turns on the light or sticks a fork in the socket, then he will have realized knowledge of electricity. So we get realized knowledge of Krishna gradually. We gradually start to feel his presence, and we feel that we are at peace. We feel that we're not bothered by things going on. We accept the things the way they are, and we're happy in the present. So we see the result. We have to judge. This is what Sankhya is. Sankhya is adding things up, the cost to value ratio. If they're selling 200 Rand notes for 1,000 Rand, it's not worth it. If they're selling them for 50, you buy them. So when we see that the cost is a little higher for Krishna consciousness, but the value is great. It's like Prabhupada said, the proof is in the pudding. You can't taste the honey by licking the outside. You have to go in. So it starts with little commitment, just by like coming to the temple and doing some chanting. And Prabhupada says we start easy. We go in like a needle and out like a plow. But if we keep our attention, like Krishna says in the 6th chapter, that from whenever and wherever the mind wanders, to pull it back under the control of the self. And then this becomes a habit. Just like the other ways you develop bad habits, you can develop good ones.
Thank you, Prabhu. Mataji, has a question?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that beautiful class. It actually reminded me of the class that my Guru Maharaj gave a few weeks ago on the flute. And he was saying that, so it's a series of lectures, stimulation for ecstatic love. So he was reciting a pastime of the gopis and Krishna and the flute, and how the gopis sort of like transcendentally envious of the flute of Krishna, and they would take and hide it, and so once, I'll just quickly, like a few minutes, 2 minutes, just tell you a brief story of how, there was a gambling match, a transcendental gambling match between Radha and Krishna and the gopis and Krishna. So Lalita stole the flute, Krishna's flute, and she hid it. And, and Krishna, he wagered his flute, he came to a point where he wagered his flute, and he started looking for his flute everywhere, and he couldn't find it. And then he asked Mother Mangal, please, you can chant these mantras and you can tell me where this flute is. And Mother Mangal did so, and he says, Lalita has your flute. And Lalita passed it to Radharani, and Radharani stuck it in her hair. So in this way, they were like criticizing the flute and saying that, you're just a bamboo rod, and you are on Krishna's lips, but, we are the gopis, and, that Krishna's lips is our property. So in this way, we see that, there's a transcendental ecstatic symptoms between Krishna and the gopis, like that. So I'm not doing justice to this pastime, but just a little what I remembered. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. There's no other comments or questions? We'll close. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.